There aren't many films out there that make the viewer speechless, to make their jaw drop to the floor in disbelief, to blow them away, causing the viewer to ask, how on earth did they film this? Raw is one of these films. Over 100 barely trained wild animals on set, numerous injuries to the cast and crew, and a family willing to do the unthinkable. This is the story of that family, passionate about wildlife preservation and their 11-year odyssey to bring their passion to the big screen. Our story begins with Noel Marshall and Tippi Hedren, major Hollywood figures of their time. Noel Marshall would be best known for his producer role in The Exorcist, while Tippi Hedren was best known for her roles in Alfred Hitchcock's films The Birds and Marnie. The two married in 1964 and relocated to Africa in 1969 during Hedren's work on the film Satan's Harvest. While exploring a national park in Mozambique during a break from production, they stumbled upon a pride of 30 lions occupying an abandoned plantation house. This encounter sparked their interest as they learned about the dire impact of poaching on Africa's wildlife. Looking at the house, Marshall said the fated words, "We should make a movie about this." The couple returned to their LA home, where they conceived their wild idea for a film, a house full of lions, centered around African wildlife preservation. During the writing process, Hedren and Marshall would visit animal preserves and consult with lion experts, most of whom told them their idea was crazy, downright idiotic. Following the advice, the couple purchased several lion cubs and other unwanted lions from zoos and circuses. Unsurprisingly, the sudden appearance of several African big cats living in the backyard of an LA mansion was quite the sight, even for Hollywood. Life photographer Michael Regia spent time with the family in 1971, taking these insane photographs with the family and Neil, a 400-pound lion. These photos are a great illustration of how the family viewed their relationship with these big cats, allowing them to roam free without any restrictions. As more lions were purchased by the family, the cats eventually aroused the suspicion of the authorities, who told Hedren and Marshall that owning lions as pets was illegal, forcing the couple to relocate to a large ranch in Acton, California, where the family and the lions would be undisturbed. By 1970, Noel Marshall had penned the first script of what was initially named Lions, Lions and More Lions, initially featuring only 30 to 40 lions. Keep that figure in your head, it'll come up later. The script evolved during production to embrace the unpredictable nature of their animal co-stars. Marshall envisioned the film as a blend of slapstick comedy and drama, conveying the message of African animal preservation. However, as you're about to see, while this message is admirable and important, creating a film in such an incredibly dangerous manner that not only presents a danger to the cast and crew, but also the animals you're trying to protect, is idiotic and morally questionable. To film their ambitious project, the couple chose their ranch as the ideal location. They hired a non-union crew after union workers declined due to safety concerns. They constructed a 2-story house set mimicking African architecture, supported by telephone poles to accommodate the numerous big cats running around the set. The surrounding landscape was transformed to resemble Tanzania, complete with planted cottonwoods, African bushes, and a dammed creek turned into a lake. As for the human performers of the film, Hedren and Marshall turned to their children, all of whom agreed to star in the roles, playing versions of themselves. Hedren herself would play Madeline, the mother. As for the lead, with no Hollywood actor agreeing to performing the risks involved in the story, which would include getting up close and performing with the lions, Marshall himself agreed to become the director and lead of the film. As for the animal cast, well, remember the original script's modest 30 to 40 lions? Well, this number had ballooned to over 150 animals. This included 71 lions, 26 tigers, a tigon, 9 black panthers, 10 cougars, 2 jaguars, 4 leopards, 2 elephants, 6 black swans, 4 Canada geese, 4 cranes, 2 peacocks, 7 flamingos, and a marabou stork. The only animal they turned down was a hippo. Now, unsurprisingly, with the large number of animals and the cost of supporting the cast and crew, this production's cost was snowballing. By 1973, the crew and food for the animals cost $4,000 per week, which in today's money is close to $27,500. For an independent, self-financed film, that's costly. The couple sold their 4 houses and 600 acres near Magic Mountain to cover costs. Possessions like Hedren's fur coat gifted to her by Alfred Hitchcock were also sold, but money was still extremely tight. Family members were forced into taking multiple roles for the film just to stay on top of the production. One such example is John Marshall, who, alongside his acting duties, had to become an animal wrangler, set mechanic, boom operator, and camera operator, while also conducting veterinary work on the animals. You get into anything slowly. We have been on this project now for 5 years. Everything we own, everything we have achieved is tied up in it. Today, we're 55% complete. We're at a point where we just have to do it. Principal photography for Raw began in 1976. Originally scheduled to take 6 months to film, filming would instead last 5 years. This severe miscalculation was due to several factors. Cinematographer Jan de Bont would spend hours filming the lions, waiting for the cats to do anything that could be used for the film. As, like every cat, lions spend most of their time relaxing or sleeping, which led to some questionable tactics being used by the filmmakers to get the lions to do, well, anything.
Just to even get the lions to drink the water, they're not going to drink on cue. So what would happen is we would have to leave them up on this hot roof for like 3 hours before we'd film. You give them salted meat to make them really thirsty.
However, the main contributor to the extended film schedule came down to the simple fact that working with wild animals on set is extremely dangerous.
When you're really watching it and you're seeing all these lions and tigers fighting and you're seeing these people in the middle of all of this, none of it is staged. I mean, this really, really happened.
Most of the 140 crew members were injured by the animals. It was common for crew to leave the production due to unsafe working conditions, leading to a revolving door situation. Most of the cast were also injured and were hospitalized for months. Marshall, the closest to the lions, was bitten 11 times and was diagnosed with blood poisoning and gangrene that would affect his health for years after the film's completion. Hedren had her own issues. She suffered multiple injuries, including being bitten in the head by a lion, scratched by a leopard on the arm, and bitten in the chest by a cougar. She was also bucked off by Tembo, the elephant, fracturing her ankle and breaking her hand. John Marshall was bitten in the back of the head by a lion, causing 56 sutures. Melanie Griffith was also bitten in the head by a lioness. She required 50 sutures and was scared she might lose an eye from the injury. Luckily, she recovered but required facial reconstruction surgery. One of the most horrifying injuries occurred when a lion attacked cinematographer Jan de Bont. While filming under a tarp, Bont was scalped by the lion and required 220 sutures. After recovering, he returned to continue filming. Assistant director Doran Kolper was bitten by a lion in the throat and jaw. He underwent 4 hours of surgery in hospital. This attack caused 20 crew members to leave en masse.
Then half of them would get up, and one time they all quit. It was like someone called wrap or cut or something, or lunch. Everybody wondered where the whole crew was going, and the whole crew went, "This is nuts. This is nuts. We can't do this. This is nuts." And like 16 professional camera people went that way.
It's honestly incredible that they weren't sued. Additionally, Marshall's inexperience as a director was a contributing factor, as he often refused to stop filming to not lose a take. Sometimes, only one take was usable from a day's filming. Another delay in filming was caused by natural disasters. The first came from heavy rains in 1978, leading to the Marshall Ranch flooding with over 10 feet or 3 meters of water. The flooding destroyed most of the set, causing $3 million worth of damages and delaying filming for a year so the land could recover. The other natural disasters were several bushfires, although no animal or person was harmed during those evacuations. After 11 years of sporadic production, Raw cost Marshall and Hedren $17 million, making it the most expensive home film ever made. Sadly, Raw was a box office flop, earning only $2 million during its limited release, and critics panned it for its weak story and emphasized the on-screen chaos as its only redeeming quality.
Oh God, look what the cat dragged in.
Raw's story isn't complex. In fact, it's easily the dullest part of the film. We follow Hank, a wildlife preservationist living in Tanzania. After receiving a grant from who knows where, it's never mentioned, Hank moved to Tanzania to create a big cat sanctuary to protect them from poachers. Now, 3 years later, his family has come to visit him. At the same time, the committee has arrived to review Hank's grant. That's the story. It's pretty clear that the narrative is a thinly veiled excuse to showcase the animals messing around, attacking each other, or attacking the people in what's often meant to be comedic, but oftentimes horrific, fashion. This creates a conflicting tone that the film greatly suffers from, as quite often, the film's comedic scenes can very easily be mistaken for a horror film. And that is the crux of Raw's dilemma, the constant and unintentional interplay between humour and horror, where intended laughter from the audience instead becomes unease, defines the film's unsettling charm, and cements Raw as a unique cinematic experience. What draws the audience in, from the opening credits of the film, is the insanity. From showing the American Humane Association seal of approval declaring that with great pride, haha, that although some scenes show animals being hurt, they were never actually hurt, to the bold text stating that the lions deserve their share of the writing and directing credits, it becomes apparent that the audience is set for a wild ride. For these establishing shots of the beautiful African wildlife and landscape, Marshall travelled to Kenya and Tanzania, which begs the most obvious question: why not make the film a documentary? It would have been more cost effective, gotten the thematic message of the importance of animal preservation across, and, most importantly, would have been far safer for everyone involved. We're then introduced to Marshall's character, Hank. While he's primarily portrayed as a wildlife preservationist, the film throws us a curveball early on by initially showing him as a doctor, attending to an injured Maasai woman. However, it's essential to note that Hank's doctor persona and the two other doctors and the Maasai people are never revisited or mentioned again throughout the film. Also, just another quick side note, but I'm just so curious as to how Marshall pitched this scene to the Maasai people. Did he tell them that it was for his film where he had a house full of big cats? With his doctor duties concluded, Hank makes his way home on his motorbike, which includes some more great shots of the African wildlife, and again just proves my point as to why didn't they just make this a documentary? The most obvious answer is staring this man in the face. Returning home, we're introduced to Hank's sanctuary and, more importantly, the lions.
Damage catastrophic. Eject sequence initiated. Goodbye.
We immediately see the uneasy relationship between man and beast, as numerous lions try to swipe and chase Hank's motorbike. There are many instances throughout the film where it's clear that the filmmakers created scenarios on the fly, based on what the lions would do, and this bike is a clear example of that, as we're going to get a massive set piece involving the bike later. But I'm getting ahead of myself. While caring for the kittens in an undoubtedly cute shot, Hank's friend Mativo arrives on his boat to take Hank to pick up his family. The actor, Kialo Mativo, quite clearly is uncomfortable around the animals, and I do not blame him. He had some very interesting insight in some behind-the-scenes footage.
Where I come from, I'm an African. We don't come close to animals. We don't cuddle them, to kiss them, to go to bed with them, and we don't do that.
Mativo also comes bearing news. The committee have arrived to review Hank's grant. Hank couldn't care less, as he believes that animals and humans have a symbiotic relationship and that if you respect the cats, they'll respect you.
The closer you get to them, the more they'd like you, the safer you'd be.
I don't see how forcing such a large number of cats together in such a small environment could be considered respectful, but I digress. Convincing Mativo to come ashore, Hank shows him around the place. Mativo just straight up isn't having a good time, and you can clearly see that from these looks that the man isn't acting. He's genuinely terrified.
You leave him alone.
So many times the actors look scared out of their mind when attempting to act alongside these animals. You can clearly see the fight or flight response being activated in their brains. After Hank gets bodied by a pride of lions, we're introduced to Robbie, the Mufasa of the pride for lack of a better name. He's apparently the reason why the sanctuary is so friendly, according to Hank. We're also introduced to Toga, the Scar of the pride, who you can tell is the evil one because the crew coloured his mane red to make it look all bloody and mean. Now, I've watched this film multiple times to prepare for this video, and seeing this footage over and over again has begun to dull me to the insanity. But every so often, I just see a shot that reminds me just how psychotic this film is. Like, just look at that. How much pussy does one man need? The grant committee arrives to review Hank's grant, and one of the members, Prentice, threatens to shoot the lions, even though they're the ones who gave Hank the money to build this sanctuary, correct? Prentice is the trigger-happy member of the committee, and is the human villain of the film. That's all there is to him.
What are you trying to prove? That you can have lions socializing with people?
No, but we can't keep exterminating them. We can't keep eliminating their land.
Hank and Prentice's argument is interrupted by a group of lions attacking each other. While Hank runs over to break up the fight, getting attacked himself in the process, a group of tigers investigate the committee and their boats. I don't know what these actors were paid for this, but it wasn't enough. This is horrifying. It explains why the water's so brown. This attack sequence goes on for a few minutes, ending with Frank having the nerve to question the committee's anger. That's genuine blood, by the way, not fake. With the committee fleeing the sanctuary, we meet Hank's family, still waiting at the airport for Hank. Tippi Hedren's character, Madeline, is told to not wait for Hank in case he doesn't arrive by nightfall, and is instead told to take her family on the bus. We're then treated to some wonderfully natural and not inappropriate at all mother-daughter dialogue.
You know that your father and I were having problems, and we thought it would be better to be apart for a while. You know, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
The heart, maybe, but what about the sex gland?
Someday I hope you'll understand the beauty of restraint and self-denial.
Well, I hope it wasn't restraint and self-denial that drove Dad away.
Meanwhile, Hank and Mativo fool around with the animals for a few scenes. It's not important. Not knowing his family have left the airport, Hank and Mativo and the two tiger stowaways travel by boat towards the airport. This doesn't last long as the boat sinks and they all swim to the shore. While Hank and Mativo are now stranded in the jungle with two tigers, the family arrives at Hank's sanctuary. Conveniently, there are no lines to be seen as the family explores the house. I will give the film credit though, as while the family explores the house, there is some very effective tension building on display, which again reinforces my point that this film is more akin to a horror film than a comedy. Leaving the front doors open, absolute chaos ensues, with the family becoming separated and desperately trying to hide from the lions. While Madeline and Melanie hide in a closet, John and Jerry search for a hiding spot. It's worth noting that besides Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith, no one else in the cast are actors, and it really shows.
Where's Mom and Mel?
They're downstairs, come on.
The next 30 to 40 minutes could be summarized as one big sequence where the family move from hiding spot to hide from the lions. As this sequence required a lot of coordinated lion movements, the crew had to get creative. For instance, during the sequences where family members being chased by the lions around the house, the crew would use fire extinguishers and live chickens to lure the lions down pathways to get necessary shots. These hiding sequences were incredibly dangerous and involved the cast getting up close to the lions in an incredibly tight space, such as this scene where Jerry, the youngest, attempts to hide from the lions in a fridge. Well, if it worked for Indiana Jones against a nuclear explosion, what are a couple lions going to do? And how about this scene where Madeline is hiding in a fallen, splintered wooden closet underneath a pride of lions? That's not a clever trick of the lens to make it appear like she's there. She's really there, underneath multiple 100-pound lions. Absolute insanity. Just when you think things couldn't get worse for the family, Togar shows up, and he is pissed off. Togar chases the family throughout the house in a destructive and horrifying scene, with Togar pushing down doors and walls while the family screams and panics from room to room. It's an incredibly tense scene. It blows my mind that they thought this could be marketed as a comedy. This is terrifying. Look at their faces. The film's tone and message is so poorly presented that it raises the question as to who is this film even for? It's not a family film or a mainstream blockbuster. Its only appeals through the sheer curiosity that appeals to people like you and I, who are intrigued by its unconventional production methods. Saved by Robbie the Good Lion and barricading themselves into a room, we cut back to Hank and Mativo, having a lovely bike ride after stealing said bikes from an African village by scaring them with the tigers. Incompetent with the bikes, Mativo's had enough and runs up a tree to get away from Hank and the tigers. Who's going to tell the man that tigers can run up trees? Unable to take the tigers to the airport, Hank convinces Mativo to use himself as bait while he stinks away to the airport. What a guy. Also, if you can't bring the tigers to the airport, why are you bringing them at all? Meanwhile, the committee is having a meeting about Hank and his animals. When the committee states that they will not kill Hank's animals, Prentice and his mates storm off, planning to kill Hank's animals, and the committee do nothing to stop them or warn the family that they're coming. Reaching the airport, Hank is told that his family has left hours ago on a bus. Hank convinces one of the men to borrow his car so he can return home. Real riveting stuff. Before returning home, Hank reaches Mativo, who has presumably been using himself as bait for the tigers all night long. This would naturally make any person grumpy, and Mativo takes it out on Hank, telling him that his lions have already eaten his family.
And do you know what your friends are probably doing to your family right now? They are making dinner of them. They are eating them.
TiVo, shut up!
This conflict goes nowhere, just like Hank's car, as while driving like an utter maniac, he punctures a tire. Unable to fix it, Hank once more runs off, while Mativo is used as bait to distract the tigers, armed with only an umbrella. Back at the sanctuary, the lions play around and destroy the family's luggage in some very cute shots. The family attempt to escape by using a boat, but are stopped by the lions, tigers, and one angry elephant. More chicanery ensues, with John attempting to use Hank's motorbike to escape and get help. This only attracts the animals, forcing John to be chased by lions, tigers, and elephants. This is a prime example of the filmmakers creating scenarios for set pieces on the fly, as John bobs and weaves with the animals chasing close behind, resulting in John driving the motorbike up to the roof of the house and, in a practical stunt, driving off the roof into the river. Stuck in the sanctuary once more, the family go back to their original plan of hiding from the lions. This includes John hiding in a barrel full of water on a hot roof. As mentioned before, the filmmakers purposely left the lions on the hot roof for hours and fed them salty meat to get them to drink. Real shitty behaviour. Abandoning the committee, Prentice and his mate go on a shooting spree, killing any animal they see. Don't worry though, the animals weren't actually shot. Instead, the effect was achieved by filming the animals when they were tranquilized for their annual blood draw. Their hunt is stopped by Toga, who attacks and kills the men. Hank arrives, screaming like a maniac, but is too late to save the men and runs off to catch Toga. The family eventually escape into a nearby shack, and collapse from exhaustion. After all they've gone through, you'd think that they'd learn to lock the bloody door. The lions enter, and instead of attacking or chasing the family, they instead sleep alongside them. This convinces the family that the lions are nice and friendly, and in a sudden 180 twist, they learn to love the animals. Hank, Motivo, and Toga return, with Hank finally reunited with his family. The film concludes with a happy ending, with the family learning to live alongside the animals, choosing to ignore all the severe trauma that they've suffered and also ignore the killing of 2 committee members. Don't even worry about it, don't think about it, just look at the animals and the family living happily ever after. Raw is a captivating and truly one-of-a-kind cinematic experience. Its ambitious use of wild animals, coupled with its impractical approach to filmmaking, led to immense financial losses and critical panning upon its initial release in 1981. However, Raw has since taken on a new life as a cult classic. It has found a dedicated and passionate audience fascinated by its insane production, and has become a symbol of unconventional, boundary-pushing cinema. The film's unique and dangerous journey from inception to completion has earned it a place in the pantheon of cult cinema, celebrated for its sheer audacity and the incredulous you-have-to-see-it-to-believe-it nature of its production. The Marshall family paid a significant personal and financial price for their commitment to making Raw. Their dedication to the project, involving real-life interactions with untamed wildlife, led to numerous physical and mental injuries and a financial burden that took years to recover from, with the couple suffering from the strain and eventually divorcing in 1982, just a year after Raw's release. Raw is a true cinematic anomaly, a testament to the extremes that filmmakers can push to realize their vision, regardless of the consequences. If you're curious to watch the film, it's free on YouTube, and I'd highly recommend it. Whatever you think of the Marshall family and their treatment of their crew and animals, this film is truly one of a kind. There won't be a film like Raw ever again.